love you, Wade Wilson.
We can fight this.
You're right. The cancer's only my liver, lungs, prostate, and brain. All things I can live without.
What if I told you we can make you better? You're a fighter. We can give you abilities most men only dream of. Make you a superhero.
You just promise you'll do right by me, so I can do right by someone else. And please don't make the super suit green or animated.
One thing that never survives this place is a sense of humor.
We'll see about that, Posh Spice. Oh, come on. You gonna leave me all alone here with less angry Rosie O'Donnell?
Hey, yeah, I wanna shoot, baby.
Packed in your stack, especially in the back, brother. Wanna thank your mother for a butt like that. You're a shotgun bang. What's up with that thing? I wanna know, how does it hang? Hold up, Mr. Lover, like Prince said, you're a sexy mother.
Wait! You may be wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants. Cue the music.
X gon' give it to you. Wait for you to get it.
What the?
X gon' deliver to you. Red with the enemy. No matter how many caps I break, when I break these enemy.
Reeks like old lady pants in here.
Why such a douche this morning?
Oh, God, you are hard to look at. You look like the topographical map of Utah.
Exactly.
Down, down, get set free. Won't be the one ending up on the beat. The only thing you can't do came out to play. Stay out.
I am very turned on right now.
Let's go give it to you. He gon' give it to you.
You are haunting. You look like an avocado had sex with an older avocado.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to GeekFest Rants. My name is Carlos Perona, and joining me today, I have Kyle Perone. Say hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Well, we've brought Kyle back once again, this time around because we are covering a movie that we just saw that, especially for Kyle, he's been anticipating this movie for a very, very long time. He's been talking about it. The fact that they actually moved forward and made this movie when it was kind of on hold for a while, and something happened that kind of triggered the entire process of the movie, being put on schedule again. And what we're talking about here is Deadpool. There's a lot of things about this movie that's pretty fascinating in terms of so many Easter eggs, how the movie was made, all the different aspects of, this movie, if you think about it, you really should not have been made because it had so many obstacles in its way. But all of a sudden, I remember, we knew it was coming. There was a lot of commercials, a lot of viral campaign, a lot of internet marketing videos being put out. And then a couple of reviews started popping. Now, last time we talked, when we were talking about the Super Bowl ads, we kept talking about the fact that we have not heard any reviews yet. But we kind of predicted that the next day after that show was done, they were going to start trickling in because the movie came out this past week. It came out on Friday, on the day before...
2 days before Valentine's Day.
And all of a sudden, the first ones we saw was Rotten Tomatoes, I think. There were a couple of reviews, very, a couple of little reviews here or there, and I was starting to get worried because it's like, it's over a week now and no reviews are out yet. All of a sudden, Rotten Tomatoes started to get all these really good reviews, and it was very weird for that to happen. So, the buzz started to flow that this is a pretty good movie. So let's start off with how we felt about it, how it compares to other superhero films, because this is a superhero film and it is an odd film. It's a very different type of film. We talked about this before. It's not a straight DC or Marvel type of film. It's not X-Men and it's not Avengers. It's a character that lives in that universe, but...
Well, in the X-Men universe.
In the X-Men universe, right. But it's a different tone. Now, also, in the past, we talked about the different tones. You've had the straight, normal, serious tone of superhero films, which is what I would say 80% of what we have out there over the last 10, 15 years has been. And by that, I'm talking about, I would say, going as far back as the Blade films, because we've talked about this with Steve Vona before, that in all reality, this new era of superhero films kind of started. I mean, even though Iron Man was the gigantic explosion of superhero films, it started a little before that with Blade. Blade is the one that all of a sudden didn't suck, basically.
I still haven't seen those.
Wow, you'll like them. Well, Ryan Reynolds is in one of those.
Like the oldest one I've probably seen is Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man.
Wow.
Well, no, the first X-Men, because that came out before that.
Okay, yeah, you need to go back a little further to kind of start catching on to where it all started. But again, when we think of your typical superhero film, modern superhero film, they're all kind of on the same level in terms of how serious they take themselves. Now, recently, we've had some big hits with Marvel films that kind of gone a little off to the side, and they went a little bit on the comedic side. And I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
They've kind of, I don't want to say they went the kiddie route, but they're definitely more family friendly, and they're definitely more humorous than your average film. Obviously not as dark as a Dark Knight or as a Captain America Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Civil War looks like it's going to be pretty dark.
Right. But even lighter than your typical Avenger or your typical Spider-Man film. These are films that are in a slightly different, I guess you'd call it a subgenre. And the trademark of this Deadpool film, what makes it different than the other films, is the fact that they are going in a funny direction. But not only are they going in a funny direction, they're going into a hardcore R-rated funny direction. So it's not, you're not bringing your kids to this movie. This is an R-rated movie for a reason. With that said, it has been tried before. They've kind of tippy-toed around it a little bit. Movies like, for example...
Kick-Ass.
The Kick-Ass films is a great example because it's like that. They try to stay serious, but they break into these comedic scenes every now and then that kind of throws the whole thing off. The first one was much better than the second one. Even Scott Pilgrim, which
I haven't seen. I also like the first two.
Right, which is based on, it is technically a comic book. It's not exactly a typical superhero film, but it does kind of go into that thing. The other thing that I would compare it to, this film more than any of these others, is the Jim Carrey movie The Mask.
Oh, yeah.
And by that, I mean, The Mask was way, way funnier in terms of it was a lighter, more family-friendly film, if you will. But the manner in which the lead character talks to the camera, he goes overboard with his comedy in terms of shifting gears, slapstick humor, with a tinge of seriousness, adult humor, with The Mask. Here, they just go straight for the adult humor. The jokes are very adult. The scenes are very adult, super graphic, violent, sexual situations, the whole kind of R-rated works, if you will. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of this is something new. And I think this is probably the first time that this has been tried so successfully. I'm sure some people could argue that the first Kick-Ass film, could probably be in that level. But again, because this is a Marvel character, it's more, I would say, recognizable than a Kick-Ass thing. So based on that, first you tell me, Kyle, how did you ever hear about this character? Because it is not a very popular character in terms of you don't see him everywhere, because this is the first time they actually thrown it in a successful movie. Not in a movie, in a successful movie.
Yeah, well, the first time I was introduced to him was X-Men Origins Wolverine. And I kind of heard of the character before, like briefly, little bits. And I recognized, and that first 20 minutes of the movie I thought was awesome. And then the rest of it was terrible. It was garbage. But I was like, oh, yeah, this character's, I like him. He's kind of funny and stuff. And I researched him and I'm like, wow. And I read some of the comics and stuff. I'm like, wow, I like this guy. But towards the end, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely not Deadpool. That is a piece of crap walking around, So ever since that movie, pretty much, I've been waiting for an actual good movie about Deadpool.
Have you read any of the comics?
Yeah, I've read some of them. I haven't read all of them. I've been to the library. They have some volumes of Deadpool comics there, so I've read them. I especially like the Deadpool team up ones where he's teaming up with Captain America and Thor and stuff.
But is he
kind of fun?
As wisecracking and as funny as he was in the movie?
It depends on the writer, really. I don't remember exactly which writers did which thing with it, but some writers, at one point the writers made him have two voices in his head that would keep talking to him throughout the comic. They didn't really do that with this movie, which I wish they kind of included that a little bit. But they didn't really do that. And then sometimes they downplayed it a little bit more. When they first had him when they first introduced him in the, like, I think it was X-Force with Cable, he was a lot more serious, but he still made those, like, jokes. But, like, he never broke the fourth wall at that point. He didn't really make any allusions to anything. But he was still kind of a little bit funny. It was in a dark sense at the time. But now he's more of the full-blown, wisecracking, crazy, fourth wall breaking guy that we know.
Now, we mentioned earlier that this is a bizarre film in terms of we have an actor who has now played 3 previous comic book characters, if you will. Ryan Reynolds was on one of the Blade films.
4 technically, because R.I.P.D., because that was a character from a comic book series. It wasn't a superhero, but it was a series.
That was him and Jeff
Bridges.
Bridges.
I saw it. You didn't see the movie. I saw it. It wasn't that good.
Well, like I said before, you have Blade. And Blade, I think it was the 3rd Blade film.
I think it was the Trinity? 3rd, I think, yeah.
He was kind of a wisecracking kind of character. He tried doing it in, like you said, Wolverine, and came out weird. He kind of got lost he got lost with the big crowd of other stars, and he just became annoying. He just wasn't...
Well, like...
Obviously, they were looking at him as a different type of character. He wasn't the lead, so he was kind of like another kind of backgroundy kind of character.
Like when in that first, like, sequence that you see him when he's not all messed up, that's what we liked, and everyone liked that. And then once you threw him into the surgical stuff, then it got all messed. Then they sewed his mouth shut, and that was ridiculous.
His probably biggest role as far as superheroes go, I would say, is when he did a Green Lantern, which was a complete flop.
And it wasn't really his fault. Like, I thought he'd played the character well. The story was all messed up, though.
Yeah, the overall film wasn't that good. So with that said, it's pretty odd that they would allow an actor to come back and try to fix a character that he's already played once before.
And on top of that, like, he even had more failures. Like, he did a DreamWorks movie that tanked. He did R.I.P.D., which tanked too. Like, he was, like, fading out of existence basically in Hollywood at the time. And this movie, I think, redeemed him for, like, is bringing him back.
Yeah,
now.
this is definitely
like, this is his first hit in a while now.
Yeah, well, probably because he's done a lot of rom-coms and stuff like that, and I guess it's kind of trendy now. You know, everybody, and we talked about this before, everybody important now wants to be involved in a comic book movie. Yeah. When in the past they would probably avoid it like the plague and just laugh at it because that's for nerds and geeks. Now everybody wants to, get a piece of the action, and, this is a bona fide hit for him. Yeah. I know we have more comic book movies coming out this year. This was technically, I think this was the first one of the year.
Yeah,
because it's February.
Yeah.
We have Superman coming. We got a lot of stuff coming. But talk about a way to start the year with a new type of comic book movie. Now, let's switch gears a little bit here. And Kyle, let's go over, this movie is packed, completely jam-packed with Easter eggs and references to just about everything that we've seen before in your Marvel and DC type of movie. So why don't we just start going through some of these different references?
All right. Well,
and let's keep in mind, they make fun of it. They're constantly making fun of it. They're making fun of themselves. They're making fun of everything. And sometimes you're like, can they do that? Can they really make fun of this? This is like, they're making fun of their own studio. They're making fun of their own movies. The opening sequence is they're making fun of all the stars and the makers of the movie.
Yeah, they call Tim Miller a sellout and stuff. And it's
well,
hilarious.
you know what? Let me actually change it up again. Instead of starting with that, let's talk about Tim Miller. Tim Miller was the person in this entire mix that I had absolutely no idea who he was. So normally when you have a new director, the guy has maybe 1 or 2 movies under his belt. And, after seeing the film, we started doing some research, and this is his first film. It's like, holy smokes, I can't believe this guy, out of the gate is doing such a well-received, good film. The only thing that I think maybe I had seen him do before, according to his IMDb and, his wiki page, he also did the opening sequences for The Girl in the Dragon Tattoo and Thor: The Dark World. So... And I know that he's kind of like one of these Fincher guys, because that's his connection to Girl and Dragon Tattoo. So it's really interesting, the fact that this guy seems to be the definition of an up-and-coming director. You know, the person that's, you know, made his mark on very small things, and now he's ready for the big leagues, and that's exactly what he did in this film. So, Kyle, let's start hitting some of these references because there's so many of them.
Well, first of all, Tim Miller, there's a street named after him in like on that highway scene. There's a lot of other like writer names on there.
Yeah.
There's comic writers on there. They have Parker Avenue for Spider-Man as a joke because there's a lot of Spider-Man jokes in the movie. Also, like the main villain Ajax is his name in the comics. He's like Deadpool's like arch nemesis from the Weapon X program and stuff. And in the movie, we actually don't know if that was Weapon X, if that was the Weapon X program or a subsidiary or something. We don't know like the company that was involved in that. And then his assistant was Angel Dust, who's in the comics. In the comics, I think she's a little bit more overpowered than she was here. But I don't remember exactly. I think she was actually able to fly or something. I'm not 100% sure on that. You also see in that area, there's a character. I forget what the actual character's name was, but I think he was a villain, though. The Worm, he was one of the people that Wade was talking to in that facility. And then also, we also see this girl with like these bone spikes coming out of her back.
Oh, yeah.
It's not 100% confirmed, but it's probably Marrow, who's another X-Force member who like can grow these spikes of bone out of herself and like rip them off and throw them at people and stuff. And we also see Bob, who's kind of a sidekick to Deadpool in a lot of comics. And in the comics, though, he's actually a member of Hydra, but in this, he's one of Ajax's gang. And he's like, oh, I remember you from TGI Fridays and stuff. So that was kind of cool that you got to see Bob in there. And then Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Colossus, those were the two X-Men that were kind of assisting him. Negasonic Teenage Warhead, she's pretty well represented as she is in the comic. She has like the same powers. Colossus, they kind of made him into a joke a little bit. Like they kind of made him he wasn't as tough as he was in the comic, and they switched the actor, and I was kind of more used to the other actor, but they technically made him more comic accurate because they gave him the Russian accent that he usually has in the comics because he's Russian, because originally he was just like had an American accent. You couldn't really tell. Vanessa, who's the love interest for Deadpool in this movie, she in the comics is actually she's another mercenary named Copycat who is kind of like Mystique. She has blue skin and stuff, but she has better changing powers, really. I don't know exactly to what degree, but like she has just better abilities, stronger abilities than Mystique. And she kind of is like the psycho ex-girlfriend in the comics. So maybe in the sequel or something, we'll see her turn into Copycat or something. Wolverine. It sounds like Deadpool's already met Wolverine when we meet him in this movie.
But at the same time, he also makes fun of
Hugh Jackman.
So it's
and he makes fun of him as Ryan Reynolds,
right?
Too,
He's also making fun of Ryan Reynolds. So it's kind of weird how they kind of bounce between reality.
You see a lot of magazine covers of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, Sexiest Man Alive, those kind of things.
Oh, he's wearing a mask at one point.
And you actually
a Wolverine mask.
Yeah, and then you also see there's an Entertainment Weekly Green Lantern hiding somewhere, right. And there's a little Green Lantern trading card.
And you see the Deadpool action figure with his
from
face sewn together from X. Yeah.
With all his like unicorns, and there's actually actual Deadpool toys just lying around also like in like Blind Owl's place. She's from the comics as well. She's kind of like, they kind of have a weird romantic relationship at one point. It's kind of weird, but they get along. It's like a love-hate relationship. There's a scene where he's confronting a pizza guy in the apartment. That whole scene is directly out of one of the comics. But this is like when he is in the costume and stuff.
Right. Oh, okay.
But literally, he even asks for the same exact pizza. It's down to like pretty much all the same lines. He makes references to Liam Neeson. He's having Liam Neeson nightmares about Taken and Taken 1 and Taken 2 and all that. Personally, also, I would like Liam Neeson to play Cable later on. And
well, there's there's a number of people already kind of trying to get recruited to play that character. What's interesting is that all these Easter eggs and all these jokes, all these in-jokes, while I was watching the movie, like I have a feeling I missed a lot of them because people were laughing so hard that you couldn't hear half the time what was the next line. I wish they would have kind of spaced things out a little more, which is why I'm really looking forward to when they finally put this thing on Blu-ray, being able to listen to every little joke that's in there.
And it's going to have a director's cut,
well,
too.
Well, that's the thing. You mentioned that you have a...
So there's going to be more jokes.
That it's going to be more jokes, a director's cut, and I hope it also has all the viral marketing, because we got to a point, I think they were releasing like one video or one ad a day, you know, leading up to the release of the film, where there was... And these were exclusively made for the marketing. And they were very funny.
Yeah, I remember they had the testicular cancer PSA. They had the Halloween. The
Australian
one was funny.
They had a whole bunch of them.
At the end, the fight that is supposedly a helicarrier.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I'm like, I whispered to you, I'm like, Kyle, is that a helicarrier?
Technically, nobody owns the rights to a helicarrier, because that's just a vehicle thing. It's not a character. But I think they kind of subtly hinted at that it is from that world, but it's not. Like, some people are theorizing it might be one of the leftover helicarriers from Winter Soldier, because it's all like, it looks like they're repairing it. Like, there's holes in it and stuff already.
Oh, to me it looked like people were like scavenging for pieces.
Yeah.
Like they were ripping it apart.
Yeah, it's theorized. It's not confirmed, but it might be from Captain America Winter Soldier, but I don't think so, because they would have acknowledged that already. There's also a joke where Deadpool says, when Colossus is taking him back to the X-Mansion, and he's like, "Oh, I'm taking you to Professor X," or something like that. And then he's like, "Oh, which one?
Which one?
McAvey or Stewart?"
McAvoy.
Also, with Cable involved, Cable is supposed to be in the comics. He's the future, either son or grandson of Scott Summers, which is Cyclops, and Jean Grey. And he's from the future, and he's a soldier, and he has this like techno virus that gives him like this robot arm and like eye thing. So he's kind of has like this techno virus going on where like little robots are like eating him away or something, and he's trying to keep him at bay. But he's a time traveler, and he actually had a series with Deadpool as Deadpool and Cable, the series, and it was apparently really good. I'd never read any of those comics, but so Weasel in the movie, Weasel was played by T.J. Miller, and he was in the comics. He's more of a weapons dealer. And in this one, they kind of made him the head of that bar. And the bar is actually in the comics. I don't think they actually referenced to it as, I think they called it like, the Hell House. That's what they called it in the comics. But they don't reference it to that. They just reference it as a secret location in the St. Sisters, whatever place. Also, there's a reference to the Mario Lopez ad campaign that they did because in the original video, it was a promo video, Mario Lopez introduced Deadpool as being an R-rated film. Like, this was like all the way back in like October.
Oh, wow.
And no, it wasn't even October. It was like May. And there's a reference in the movie where he's reading the Mario Lopez biography, like on the toilet or something. I don't remember, but it was in there. And then in the Stan Lee cameo, where he's at the strip club. He's running the strip club. Oh, they make a reference to Blade 2 where Weasel tells Ryan Reynolds to go like, I forget what it was exactly, but he was like, "Oh, go watch the midnight showing of Blade 2 or something." He tells him. He also has, we see it when he's in the taxi, he has an Adventure Time watch from the Cartoon Network show, which is kind of funny.
Doesn't he also have like a Hello Kitty watch at one point?
He has a Hello Kitty Band-Aid or something, I think, or something. But and also funny story on the official Deadpool Twitter page, the only other Twitter page that the Deadpool thing is following is Hello Kitty. They also did an ad campaign where it was clickbait, where it's like, top 10 secret chimichanga secrets of all time, and you click on it, it's just like, you've been clickbaited by Deadpool, which I thought was funny. Rob Liefeld, who was the creator of Deadpool, was actually in the bar, and they refer to him as Rob Liefeld in the bar. And there's also a street named after him too. And there's also a coffee cup that you see in the car that flips and stuff. There's a little coffee cup that says Rob L. So he has a ton of himself in the movie. Also recently, like literally today, there was some articles I've been seeing where they've narrowed down to who leaked the test footage. Either Tim Miller, the director, or someone from his company, which is Blur Studios, which produced that test footage. And also, I think they also did the VFX for the movie too, right? Because that's his company.
Well, the other thing about that test footage was that, from what I remember, that's one of the things that kind of triggered the whole movie all of a sudden being put back on the schedule in terms of people's good reaction to it. Yeah. And in a way, when I see stuff like that happen, sometimes I even start suspecting that, are leaks real leaks or are these fake leaks? In other words, could this have been like a trial balloon by Fox trying to see, you know what, let's put it out there. Let's just see what kind of reaction we get. Let's see if people all of a sudden say, "Oh, don't even bother with that crap." Or all of a sudden they're like, that looks amazing. Let's do it. Let's do it for real. Because I remember something like that happened, and it wasn't a leak. It was trial footage. When Tron Legacy was about to come out, they put out this little reel of special effects of the motorcycles, and people's reaction was incredible. And based on that reaction, I think it was the San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
They greenlit the film, and all of a sudden it was made. So, I don't, I wouldn't be surprised if Fox really wasn't behind the leak itself.
And then also the end credits scene is take on the Ferris Bueller
The
end
stinger,
credit scene.
the after credit.
Yeah, and that's where he announces that Cable will be in the movie, the next movie.
See, that's another thing that I remember I talked to you about that seemed a little suspicious to me, that you have to be very, very confident to put something like that at the end of your film, knowing whether or not you got a sequel coming. They're very confident there's a sequel coming, and I don't blame them. At the time of them shooting the film, I'm sure they could be thinking of a sequel, but something tells me that they didn't put that ending on, that specific extra ending, until the film was starting to get shown to certain people, maybe the executives at Fox or something, because it's super risky to even mention something like that at the end of a... It's different with the Avenger films, because the Avenger films, they can tease to future stuff, but they don't have to be super specific about it.
Yeah.
But this is so specific in terms of this is happening and the character we're bringing next time and blah, it's like, wow, that's pretty... you're pretty confident of yourself to go that far.
He also references, like, when he's talking to the other X-Men that are in the movie, he references how, like, oh, there's only two of you. Yeah. There's only two of you because they couldn't afford to put any other X-Men in this movie. But, like, I already said this before, but it sounds like he's already met Beast, apparently, because he references to him, like, to Beast crapping on his lawn, and he references to having to perform some sort of sexual act with Wolverine to get the movie made. So he's met these people before, like, and it sounds like they've been reaching out to him, trying to stop him from killing people to try to bring him onto the team.
That's right.
I also think is kind of weird, because Deadpool, in this movie, they make him out to be a mutant, and that his powers were deep inside of him already. But in the comics, he's a mutate, which is, they injected him with Wolverine's healing factor, which gave him the powers. He was never a mutant to begin with. He was never really that crazy until the experiment that made him Deadpool. So they kind of altered his origin story.
I like the fact that one of the bad guys, he keeps referring to him as Mr. Smith from The Matrix, because he kind of looks a little bit like him, just a little bit. Anyway, let me throw now to my other co-host, Steve Avona, who's seen the movie actually a couple of hours ago. And he's also gushing over, how good it is. So, Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about Deadpool?
Thanks, Carlos. What can I say about Deadpool? Or should I say, what the f*** can I say about Deadpool? I loved it. I just saw it, so my reactions and my recollections are very fresh. I'm really happy that the movie got made in the first place. I'm sure everybody knows that Ryan Reynolds has played this character before, but not the way he wanted to play it. And his first appearance in character came in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is a horrible movie, and I think most people would agree with me on that. And perhaps the worst aspect of that movie is how it treated Deadpool. There are brief flashes of how the character should be played, and when I learned that Ryan Reynolds was playing it in Wolverine, I thought, oh, this is great. He's going to do the character justice. And I had heard that he wanted to play this character in a standalone movie, so I thought that this would be kind of a springboard to that. And as we all learned, that movie was a springboard to nothing, and very lucky that the Wolverine franchise survived it and came out with a great sequel, and now there's going to be a third one. But getting back to Deadpool, it really looked as though this film was never going to get off the ground, especially after Reynolds played Green Lantern, and that movie bombed. Now, I was mildly optimistic about him as Green Lantern, but the Ryan Reynolds persona doesn't necessarily fit the character of Hal Jordan perfectly the way it does Deadpool. He, as Hal Jordan, is not terrible, but the movie that surrounds him is not good. It's not well written. It feels very slapdash, and that also sort of contributed to DC's ongoing failure to get a hero off the ground, and it diminished Ryan Reynolds' bankability, to the point where, again, it hindered the likelihood of Deadpool ever being made, because not only did you have that film, but subsequent to that, you had R.I.P.D., which he starred in with Jeff Bridges, which is also another comic book adaptation, not one that I'm honestly very familiar with, but a complete and total, at least in film form, Men in Black ripoff. And you would think that it was sort of a great recipe there with Reynolds and Bridges, and it falls flat. So really, Ryan Reynolds, the thought of him carrying a movie really, I guess, was just not feasible in the eyes of Fox executives, and I'm not really surprised. Even though they mishandled Deadpool in the Wolverine movie, there was this sort of promise that he would get his chance to do it again. But again, what are promises in Hollywood? And I would say the one thread that kept going through my mind that Ryan Reynolds could play Deadpool was the way he played Hannibal King in Blade Trinity, a movie that he pretty much steals out from Wesley Snipes, who, as we now know, was barely present during the actual filming of the movie. And there was a possibility that never materialized that Reynolds and Jessica Biel were going to get their own Night Stalker spinoff as a result of the popularity that he and she had in Blade Trinity. And that was, again, sort of the jokey Ryan Reynolds persona imprinted on a comic book character. And again, that was not necessarily an honest-to-God portrayal of Hannibal King, more so as it was just Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds in a superhero movie. Whereas Deadpool seems just to have been completely and utterly created for Ryan Reynolds' acting persona, whatever you want to say, personality, even though Deadpool was created in 1991, way before Ryan Reynolds hit the scene. But we all know that it really just seemed like a less and less of a chance that this movie was ever going to happen. And luckily for us, someone, could have been Ryan Reynolds, it could have been the director Tim Miller, it could have been the screenwriters, it could have been the guys at the VFX company, leaked some footage, test footage, a test reel that was made, I guess, to sell Fox on the idea of Deadpool the way he was supposed to be. No one's taken ownership of it, but it just basically broke the internet when it was released. And Fox really did very little to stop it, to punish the guilty, so to speak. It really, I think, cemented in their mind. I mean, the reaction was just overwhelming as to this movie needed to be made, and the clamor that arose in all social media. And, I'm sure it was a very calculated move on somebody's part, maybe all their parts, to put this footage out there and to get it made. So Fox greenlit the film, and everything we've seen along the way in terms of publicity, trailers, interviews, whatever, has been a promise to the fans that the movie would honor the character, who is an anti-hero. He started out as a villain, sort of evolved into an anti-hero. And for those of you who don't know, Deadpool is Marvel's answer to Deathstroke, the Terminator. For those of you who don't know, the Terminator, predating Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was the character of Slade Wilson, who we've seen on Arrow. Slade Wilson, Wade Wilson, get it? So Deadpool is Marvel's sort of bizarro take on Deathstroke, and that's how he started out. And started out more as sort of a hardcore villain in the X-Men universe, and evolved primarily through a really, really fantastic series in the late 90s by Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness. He had some limited series prior to that, and I believe this was his first ongoing series. And that was really what set the tone for Deadpool as we know him now, and everything that's followed since has sort of, taken its cues from that series. Although I guess the persona sort of was evolving before that. And he's shown up in Marvel Comics, not just with the X-Men, but with all manner of Marvel heroes and villains. And again, one of the, I guess, trademarks of Wade Wilson, not only being the sarcasm and the sort of ultra violence, but is that sort of meta aspect that he has. He's breaking the fourth wall, constantly talking to the readers and commenting on comic book tropes and sort of turning comic books on their head. And that's what happened in this movie. I said this to Carlos before through email, that I don't think Deadpool would have been as successful as it is right now had it not been for 15 years worth of superhero films. It's its own genre now, like the Western, like the sci-fi film, like the action film. And not that this is like an out and out parody. Sort of, I made the comparison, which I don't know if it's completely fair to say that it's like the Blazing Saddles of superhero films. And that's not completely fair because Blazing Saddles pretty much destroyed the Western genre, which was on its last legs anyway. Deadpool is not going to do that. This genre is very, very healthy. But thanks to all the films and all the cliches that they've spawned, Deadpool could sort of have a lot of fun with all that. And the movie does. It really, really does. And it honors the spirit of the comic. Reynolds is so spot on perfect in this role. Fox has already greenlit a sequel, which I'm sure, spoiler alert at the end tag of the movie, Deadpool in his Ferris Bueller bathrobe says Cable is going to be in the next film. And Stephen Lang, who was in Avatar, is already lobbying to play Cable. And he's someone who Deadpool interacted with a lot in the comics and who has a heavy connection to X-Men and the New Mutants. And Deadpool actually appeared the first time in a New Mutant comic by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Nicieza, I'm not sure how you say his name. So I can't say enough about how amazing and hysterical and violent this film was, and I can't wait for a sequel. I think that I don't have a lot to criticize. Reynolds was spot on perfect. The tone was perfect. The pacing was perfect. The only thing that I found a bit silly, if I had to lobby any sort of a criticism onto the film, and I guess it was, again, to try and keep it in sort of the humorous tone, was the way they handled Colossus in the film. They did not use Daniel Cudmore, who played him in I guess 3 films prior, and just recently in Days of Future Past. And supposedly he was offered the role but turned it down because it was mostly CGI. As played in this film by whoever plays him, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. He's got this terrible, terrible cartoon Russian accent, and it's, he's obviously there for Deadpool to rip on, make fun of, goof on the X-Men. And, that's fine. It works. I would hate to see him portrayed that way in serious X-Men films, and I'm sorry to see Daniel Cudmore lose the role if that's really what's happened here. And this other character, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, who I don't know a heck of a lot about, she is really from past my days of, I was never a huge X-Men reader to begin with, but the character in the film is pretty cool, and the name is cool, and she seems to fit in very well with Deadpool. And it'll be interesting to see if Deadpool has much more interaction with the X-Men universe going forward. I'm sure this is going to beget at least a trilogy, and wonder whether or not after X-Men Apocalypse, Deadpool has a place in the ongoing X-Men universe with Fox, which is going to go on ad infinitum, because as long as Fox's X-Men films are successful, they will never revert the license back to Marvel, and they'll be doing them in perpetuity. But like I said, I can't say enough good things about this film. And I just hope that there's more to come. It's even a little poignant. There's a lot of jokes and stuff, but there's a real heart to the film, which I think really needs to be stressed. It's surrounded by violence and killing and superhero stylized action, But Ryan Reynolds and Morena Baccarin, their sort of love story is a little bit touching, and I felt that, and felt that in my loins. The way Ryan Reynolds wants us to. So I just have to give this some really enthusiastic thumbs the hell up, and hope that we see more in the very near future. I know it's been greenlit for a sequel. So, I'll just throw it back to you, Carlos, and thanks for letting me share my thoughts.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. I want to thank Kyle for joining me, and he went with me to see the movie. And this wasn't a 3D movie, right, Kyle? This was a regular one?
No, this was just, they had it on IMAX, but we didn't see it on IMAX.
That's right. But our theater, I think it was big enough and loud enough. It's good to definitely see this somewhere big. Hopefully we'll have some DVD news, Blu-ray news coming. I'm sure they're going to want to fast track this movie.
That director cut, that's what we got to get.
Right. It already apparently set a record for the
biggest R-rated movie of all time.
Weekends, I think.
Opening day,
opening weekend.
It's probably going to make more money. I think it's going to be the biggest R-rated hit of all time, probably, based on where it's going.
I think the first weekend it got like 130.
Yeah, they already beat out 50 Shades of Grey already, apparently. So that I think had the record before.
Well, let's hope they keep going, and let's hope they keep making. I mean, again, when you create a new subgenre, like we mentioned before, you're bound to have copycats. So let's hope that whoever copies it, whether maybe DC will bring some characters.
Yeah, they have a couple characters they could
that are a little more adultish, and then they can contribute to this.
Honestly,
format.
I thought that they would maybe do that with Suicide Squad. I think that they should have done that with Suicide Squad.
That's a good point.
Because they're making toys and stuff for it. It's going to be PG-13. It has to be.
That's what I was asking you. We went to Toys R Us and I asked you, are there any Deadpool toys?
No.
But you said that Fox doesn't like
the only toys that they have a Lego figure, and then they also have some 16-inch figures from Entertainment Earth and stuff like that. But that's about it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you might be able to find some classic Deadpool stuff, but
there's
no movie specific.
No.
Toys out there.
Just that one tall figure.
Yeah. Well, and I also want to thank Steve Avona for giving us his 2 cents on this movie. That I guess we would both agree that not only is it an unexpected good film, but it's an unexpected hit. Similarly to how Force Awakens a couple of months ago got such good press. This seems to be kind of in that vein in terms of a movie that you were hoping was kind of good, and it actually is as good as you hope it would be. But you got to remember, it's for this particular genre. Not for little kids. I would say not for older people. This is a teenagery, young adult crowd, especially a comic book kind of crowd.
Yeah, when we were at the theater, there was a couple old people there that seemed like they weren't enjoying themselves.
A couple. And if you don't know, you don't have to be a super comic book nerd to know this stuff, but if you're somewhat familiar with Avenger or DC, at least the movies, you'll get the jokes. But like I said before, with that said, there were some jokes that I didn't get. I had to get the explanations from you or from other people or from the internet. You go to these websites they post on Facebook and everywhere, top 20 references or top 20 Easter eggs.
There was some movie references I didn't get because I haven't seen those movies yet.
That's the thing. Yeah, even for you, there was some stuff that wasn't there. But overall, like I said, we had a great time. And as usual, thank you guys for listening. And we will see you here soon at GeekFest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
It's almost Australia Day. I mean, seriously, I'd fit right in with your proud nation, with its shady criminal past and its predilection for blackout drinking and unrelenting condescension toward New Zealand. Only one teeny problem. You gave us Wolverine. And for that, I can't forgive you. I've got no problems with Hugh. I mean, he's a delightful guy. He really is. True legend. But the movie, that was a career low for me. You understand. Anywho, why am I here? Oh, right. Happy Australia Day. Because that's a real thing. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. I know you say that one, too. Oh, shit, that's a hat. You guys wear this. I thought I was getting swarmed by diddly Australian bees.
Felt that in my loins.
Hold on.